ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We send peace and blessings upon the last and final messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Over the course of the last few sessions, we've been discussing some of the etiquettes that the author makes mention of concerning our interaction with the Qur'an. The book itself, what's it titled? Anyone remember? The book that we're exploring, what's it titled? This is a catastrophe. No one knows the title. MashaAllah. That's great, yeah. It's the etiquettes of the bearers of the Qur'an. So the entire book is dedicated to discussing the etiquettes of those who embody its meaning properly. And through taking a look at their etiquettes, we draw from them insights and inspirations that will help us foster a deep connection with Allah's book and Allah's message. We've all been reading this book from a young age. We're sent to mosque to learn Arabic literacy, and we spend years memorizing the smaller chapters. But as time goes on, the relationship with the Qur'an, it becomes robotic, dry and mundane. And we fail to maximize the benefits of its recital. So up until now, we've discussed some examples of how the early pious predecessors, they would interact with this book. They wouldn't just look at this book as a series of letters, words and sentences. Rather, they looked at this book as if it's something that contains a heartfelt, emotive letter from the Lord of the worlds to those that He loves, to those He cares about, in the hope of giving them guidance, in the hope of providing them with the criterion between right and wrong. In the previous session, we spoke about one aspect of those etiquettes and those interactions, and that was sajdatul tilawa. We talked about how the reason why sajda was ordained amidst recital was to give meaning and life to the recital. That it's not just a book that's read while focusing on other things. Rather, there are moments where we have to respond to the Qur'an's content. When we're instructed to glorify, we have to glorify. When we're instructed to seek protection, we seek protection. It's an interactive book that warrants us to respond. And when we start to understand that a response from us is necessary to foster a deep connection with Allah's words, it makes us more alert, allowing us to cultivate attentivity when reading this book. So in the last session, we talked about the different instances where we're instructed to make prostration. And how do these instructions of prostration link to the powerful meaning that's been conveyed? Quite often, the sujoodul tilawa, they have an inseparable link with the meaning and the theme of that particular chapter. And I gave an example of Surah An-Najm, where it was a chapter that was revealed in a time where the Quraysh, they uncontrollably fell into prostration. Allah revealed the verse saying, فَاسْجُدُوا لِلَّهِ وَاعْبُدُوا, that prostrate to your Lord and worship Him. And this was during heightened persecution, where some Muslims had migrated to Abyssinia in the hope of finding more religious betterment, in the hope of escaping torture and torment. But the Quraysh fell into prostration. And this wasn't something they decided to do. It was something they couldn't control. Because the words that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam recited, they aligned with their innate disposition. And that's the worship of one God. When the words of God are recited, those words, they resonate with the human heart. We've seen so many examples and case studies of non-Muslims who don't understand anything of the Arabic language. But when Quranic verses are recited, it touches their soul. The verses penetrate their heart. It brings them to tears, despite the fact that these people do not understand what's been read. Because the Qur'an has divinity. It has miraculousness. It gives a person a sense of direction and a spiritual uplift from unanticipated sources and means. So this points to the fact that the Quranic recitation is something interactive, and it's something we have to give life to. Especially living in a time and a day and age where everything is just passive consumption. We do everything for the sake of ticking that box. There doesn't need to be a purpose or meaning behind our day-to-day contributions. Wake up, brush our teeth, go to work, pray, raise the kids. It's all just part of a routine. It's a tick box exercise. We don't often reflect upon the reasons behind these day-to-day actions. See, here we're taught to pause and think, to have a response for Allah's instructions, His advices, to reflect upon the meanings and the themes. Today we're going to be discussing the etiquettes of completing the Qur'an. And this particular chapter, it's titled Al-Adabu fi Khatm al-Qur'an, the etiquettes concerning the completion of Qur'an. Now in today's day and age, when this particular phrase is used, it often refers to the completion of Qur'an in terms of memorization. But Imam Nawawi, when he spoke about this topic, he's not speaking about memorization. He's speaking about the recital of the Qur'an from cover to cover, finishing a khatma while reading. He's not speaking about those who are on a journey to memorize the entire book. He's talking about the everyday person, the laborer, the elite, the educator, the taxi driver, the chef, the everyday person who's striving to develop a connection with Allah, despite his struggles, entanglements, commitments. And this person wants to better his relation with his Lord. And he's saying when this person reads from Fatiha to An-Nas, there are certain etiquettes he has to uphold. And these are certain things that have become outdated in our time. So he mentions 5 etiquettes. And he considers these to be primary etiquettes for the believer who wants to embody the Qur'an. Number 1, completing the Qur'an at a preferred time. So before starting and taking a deep dive into these etiquettes, many of us, we struggle to make time to read a few verses a day, let alone finishing the Qur'an cover to cover. But this does not mean that it can't become something that we can work towards in the long run. If we read even half a juz every single day, we can complete the Qur'an in 2 months. It's not impossible. If we set ourselves a certain goal and we stick to that goal, it's not a race, it's more of a marathon. Even if it's 6 or 7 months, the Qur'an can be completed. It's not impossible. All we're doing is reading. But the author starts by saying there are preferred times for the completion of the recital to occur. And the scholars have differed about the best time for completion. And the fact that we're having this discussion about how and when the Qur'an should be completed, it points once again to its majesty, its grandeur, its miraculousness. That every single detail concerning this book has been discussed in an expansive fashion by those who came before us. How to read it, standing or sitting, to look at it, to touch it. Every detail is discussed in depth in order for us to maximize the benefit of connecting with this holy book that we have been given the responsibility of fulfilling. So some scholars mention it's best to complete this book during the night. And some have mentioned the completion is best in the early day. And Imam Nawawi continues to say, وَبِالْأَسْحَارِ هُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. And it's in the early dawn that they ask for forgiveness. Meaning that night worship is described to be the deepest state of presence. It's at the middle of the night when a person is in touch with his emotions and sentiments. It's at that portion of the night that we wear our hearts on our sleeves. We display our vulnerabilities. And when the Prophet ﷺ, he was speaking to one of the companions, and he praised this man and said he's one of the best men I've ever known. And then he posited a piece of advice. He said, نِعْمَ الرَّجُلُ عَبْدُ اللَّهِ لَوْ كَانَ يُصَلِّي مِنَ اللَّيْلِ. What an excellent man Abdullah is, if only he would wake up in the night to pray. So he uses these reports to demonstrate that any action done in the night, particularly the first portion of the last part of the night, then this is the most optimal action. This is when Allah descends and He says aloud, is there anyone asking that I may give? Is there anyone calling that I may answer? Is there anyone seeking forgiveness that I may readily respond? So he emphasizing that the timing is not a legal obligation, but it's spiritual optimization. It's a way to optimize that connection. And whether you're reading 3 verses, 1 verse, 1 chapter, 2 chapters, we can still draw from this that there are certain times that are more beloved to Allah than other times. Certain times are more auspicious than others. So you receive the reward irrespective of when the action is done. But if we're able to make some time to do that action at a certain portion of the day, then there's more auspiciousness and there's more reward within that action. The second etiquette is fasting on the day of completing the Qur'an. The Salaf were reported that whenever they would do a khatma, just reading the Qur'an, It could have been that they read the Qur'an over the course of a year or 2 years. But when they would reach to An-Nas after having started from Al-Baqarah or Al-Fatiha, they would then fast on the day that they were due to complete the entire Qur'an as a shukr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Imam al-Nawawi, he recites the verse, وَإِذْ تَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Your Lord proclaimed, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you. And it's almost as if the greatest blessing that they were ever given was to be able to read the words of their Lord from cover to cover, from beginning to end. And they considered this blessing to be so huge in gravity that they would fast on the day when they completed the recital of the Qur'an. That points to how much of a high-ranking station Quranic recital had in their hearts and their minds. We throw parties when we get a promotion at work. You know, we make announcements on our social media when we purchase a new car or a new house. But the companions, they gave the same level of importance and displayed a similar level of joy and happiness when they completed the Qur'an cover to cover. Because they understood what that meant for their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a step closer to drawing closer to Him Jalla Jalalu. It's a step closer to becoming of the people of Qur'an. It's a step closer to becoming of those who embody its meaning. And we spoke about the reports that speak about the Qur'an's virtues. Those who will be said to them on that day that recite and ascend. For the verse that you stop at will depict the station that you will receive in the afterlife. The recital of Qur'an and the amount that a person accumulates will decide the station in the afterlife. And the Prophet ﷺ was reported to have said in many other reports, the Qur'an will be an intercessor for the person who gave it its due right in this world. And there's another hadith where he said, the people of Qur'an are Allah's family and are His special people. He described them as Allah's family and special people. Is there anyone that can be closer to Allah than those who busy themselves with connecting to this book? Whether it's through reflection or recital or completion. The third etiquette is attending gatherings where the Qur'an is completed. There's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, وَمَا اجْتَمَعَ قَوْمٌ فِي بَيْتٍ مِّن بُيُوتِ اللَّهِ يَتْلُونَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا نَزَلَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّكِينَةُ وَغَشِيَتْهُمُ الرَّحْمَةُ وَحَفَّتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. No group gathers in a house from the houses of Allah, reciting His book, except tranquility descends upon them and mercy envelops them. Imam al-Nawawi, he considers it highly recommended to attend gatherings of khatam. And like I said, in today's day and age, the word khatam tends to be used for a person who memorizes the book. But he's using this term for people who just finish the book from cover to cover and they're merely reading. They're looking at the mushaf and they're reading. To organize somewhat of a gathering in celebration of having done a khatmah is something that's in line with the habits and the practices of those who came before us. So he mentions the early generations believed that these gatherings were moments of mercy that would descend. And there's a direct report where Abdullah ibn Abbas, while he was walking, someone rushed towards him and said that such and such a person is at the verge of completing his daily recital, and through that he will have completed the entire Qur'an. And to which he said, فَأَشْهِدُوا لَهُ, that make this a testimony for him, i.e. gather the people. Tell them to witness his completion of that book. The Qur'an, it was given such a high station that it's as if they achieved something remarkable. It's the same level of importance and value we would give to somebody who attained a high-paid job or a fancy sports car that's only available to some people. Finishing the Qur'an was among the most optimal blessings that they considered to have been given, radiyallahu anhum. So another lesson we learn is the importance of communal spirituality. We live in a day and age where individualism is seeping in Muslim households. Weeks go by and the only people we interact with are those within our own immediate households. Let alone, distant family members, and let alone those who are in the masjid. We live in a very individualized society where it's difficult for brothers to gather, to connect, and to keep tabs on one another. But this report teaches us that the smallest, well, for us, these are the smallest of instances. But for them, these were major celebrations that warranted communal gatherings. They would get together to celebrate the completion of Qur'an for a person they didn't even know intimately. So it teaches us that the more Muslims come together, the more they share a bond of brotherhood and collectivity, the more they're able to increase in their spiritual connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Imam al-Nawawi also sheds light on the importance of using like-minded brothers as stepping stones to gaining closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you could come to a gathering and you have no intention of bettering yourself spiritually. You might have not read the Qur'an for 3 or 4 months, but through attending that one gathering, you go away and you start your journey to finishing the Qur'an from Al-Fatiha to An-Nas because of that one gathering. And this is the inspiration that can be drawn from those gatherings that are being pointed to in these reports. The fourth etiquette is making dua after completion. He mentions that Humayd al-A'raj, one of the Salaf, he said, "Man qara al-Qur'ana thumma da'a ammana ala du'aihi arba'atu alafi malak." Whoever recites the Qur'an and follows it with a dua, 4,000 angels say Ameen to his supplication. This is a report that's disputed, but the default report that supports this is there. And it's reported from some of the Salaf. So here we taught that one of the ways to have our prayers readily accepted, one of the ways to have angels join in that particular celebration, to make it something divine and special and something that's more accepted by Allah, is to have this collective gathering where dua is made exclusively for the completion of Qur'an. And that's something that Allah, He showers blessings upon. So here, we're taught making dua. What's the purpose behind making dua for the completion? Imam Nawawi mentions to make the Qur'an a light, mercy and guide. To ask for understanding and consistency upon that journey. To make the Qur'an a proof for that person and not something against him. And these were all du'as that have been narrated from the Prophet ﷺ. He said, Allahumma ja'al al-Qur'ana rabi'a qulubina wa nura sudurina wa jala'a ahzanina wa qa'idana ila al-jannah. These are reports that some of the Salaf and the Prophet, peace be upon him, would read. That, oh Allah, make the Qur'an the light and spring of our hearts. Make it the thing that rids us from depression, anxiety and worry. Make it our guide in this world. Make it the thing that drives us to paradise, oh Allah. These are du'as they would frequently make. And as one report, the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Qur'anu hujjatun laka aw alayk. The Qur'an is either a proof and a burden for you or against you. Either this book is for you or against you. There's no middle path. Either it's for you or it's against you. And which one it is depends on the type of connection you have with it. It depends on the steps that you take to foster a more intimate relationship with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 5 is beginning a new recitation immediately after completing one. This is a profound point. The 5th etiquette, beginning a new recitation immediately after completing one. So when the Qur'an is finished, this person now he's reached Surah Al-Falaq as an example. After he finishes Ikhlas and Falaq, and then he's at An-Nas. Here Imam al-Nawawi is mentioning, according to our reports and the heritage, he should start a new khatmah before he has a gathering or celebration. Because that displays his genuineness and sincerity. It displays that it's a journey he's going to continue. He's not satisfied that, oh, I've done a khatmah, I've completed my deed. I've ticked that box. It shows that it's a lifelong commitment that he's willing to uphold. It shows that it's something he's going to do till death does him apart. So, and Anas radiallahu an, there's a famous report where he said, خَيْرُ الْأَعْمَالِ الْحَالُ وَالرِّحْلَةِ. The best of deeds are the al-hal and al-rihla. And what's meant by this is the opening of the Qur'an and the completing of it again and again. And as one report, one of the Salaf said, there's nothing in the entire world that equals to reading Allah's book from cover to cover. There's nothing in this world that equals to reading Allah's book cover to cover. And some of them would say that when we tasted the sweetness of completing Allah's book and connecting with its meanings, the most adorned temptations of this world, they meant nothing to us. There's nothing more sweeter than connecting to this book, and there's nothing that's more uplifting than finishing those words. So it teaches us to have a lifelong companionship. It teaches us the journey is never ending. It's a cycle of growth. Each reading brings about new insights. And just reciting Al-Fatiha and finishing An-Nas, even if it's over the course of a few years, it's something we work towards. And an important point to take into consideration here is a journey is judged by how it's concluded, not how it's initiated. The Salaf would often say that the best part of any action is the ending itself. خَيْرُ الْأَعْمَالِ خَوَاتِمُهَا. The best of the deeds are the endings. So we could start a journey and we might have only reached to Surah Hud as an example, which is just before the half point of the Qur'an. And just dying upon that, providing our intention is sincere, that will be written as if we did a khatmah. This is the mercy of Allah upon the believing people. As long as we intend for good, as long as we're people of perspective and insight, we're people who want to build a lifelong connection with this book, the rewards will be written for us. What are the lessons we learn? Number one, to build a sustainable relationship with the Qur'an. In the hustle and bustle of day-to-day life, we all have different commitments. Working 9 to 5, we might have dependents, we might have to work extra jobs, we might have unwell people that require our care outside of our 9 to 5 work. But we have to create a realistic, consistent habit that's doable for all of us. And this is all down to a person's individual circumstance. But the key thing here is to have a daily Quranic recital that we commit to up until our death comes to us. The Quran is something we have to dedicate our lives towards. And living in an era of communication, mass information, where we can read, as an example, Alif Lam Mim. And we can type into Google the meaning of Alif Lam Mim. And there you have it, hundreds and thousands of commentaries on what those letters mean and what the reports are that have come to us concerning those letters. Just at our fingertips, we have explanations that people before us would travel country to country for. So connecting with the book is more facilitated than ever. So every day just to read a small portion. It's not a race or a sprint, it's a marathon. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Everyone's at a different part of the journey. The key thing is we tell ourselves, I'm going to read X amount of verses and I'm going to connect to those verses through understanding the meaning, through having an insight to the theme of that particular chapter. What is Allah trying to convey to me here? Number two is use the community to stay connected. We have many mosques in Rochdale. Yeah, there's no shortage of mosques and there's no shortage of lectures and circles. Not just in this mosque, there are many mosques that are offering services and lessons. But it's crucial that we take advantage of these facilities that are made available to us. Because it's only through connecting with like-minded people that we can truly benefit. If we're just going to work and coming home and then we're spending time with children and we're sleeping, and this daily schedule is repeated throughout the week and throughout the months, we'll find ourselves losing drive and morale. We won't have the inspiration to undertake these type of journeys where we're aiming for something that's going to spiritually uplift us and satisfy us and fulfill us. This can only be attained through having a community that you can seek inspiration from. Whenever you enter the mosque, you'll find somebody better than you. Someone who prays in a better way than you pray. Someone who does certain actions, could be the sunnahs, the nawafil, the dua, something you're not doing. And that inspires you to follow in that person's footsteps. And these are among the benefits of frequenting the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you bounce off other people's strengths. You bounce off their strengths, allowing you to fill the gaps where your weaknesses lie. Allowing you to better yourself. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ would often say that companionship is like the one who sells perfume and the one who sells coal. Even if you don't physically sell perfume or you don't physically sell coal, like your companion, the effects of those trades will rub off on you. If you're with a person who sells perfume all the time, the perfume will be smelt on your clothing. And if you're a person who doesn't physically sell coal, the effects of being with that person will be visible on your clothing. And that's companionship in a nutshell. So just being in the mosque, there's the one hadith, the hadith I quoted about gathering in a house from the houses of Allah and reciting Allah's book. The angels descend, mercy envelops you. At the end of the hadith, when Allah's telling the angels that accept this person's action, write this person down as someone whose dua I'm going to respond to, among the people who Allah Azza wa Jal writes acceptance for is the person who just came to tag along. The guy who had no intention of benefiting from the lecture. He didn't even know he was going to come. He happened to arrive at the mosque and he found himself amidst a group of people who he doesn't even know. But he sat there and he listened. he's included on that list of people who the angels will shower their blessings and mercy upon. So this is the effects of being within a community. Last but not least is let each completion improve the character. A khatam isn't something we do. It's not like when you have no claims bonus on your insurance. I've got 6 years, 7 years. This is not the purpose behind it. You don't write it on your status. You don't wear a badge saying 5 khatmas per week. This is not the purpose. The purpose is for that khatma to bring out the best version of you. For that khatma to have a direct impact on your life. For that khatma to transform you in ways that you never anticipated you could be transformed. So here we're taught that each khatma should improve the mannerisms, the patience, and the service we provide to family and neighbors. It should make us better fathers, better husbands, better children, better community members, better friends. This is the purpose behind reading the Qur'an, is that those words can be translated into action. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq. We ask Allah to make us of the carriers of the Qur'an and to adopt the etiquettes. And we ask Allah ta'ala to soften our hearts and allow the Qur'an to penetrate our hearts. أقول ما تسمعون وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وأتوب إليه. I'll end here and I'll pass it around for the brothers to share their reflections. جزاكم الله خيرا.